Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the chat session on the This Way Network. We are so excited to have you with us this morning. And
Yeah.
welcome and good morning to Rodney. I know it's a lot earlier where you are than it is here.
Oh, it's okay. It gets the day rolling, but it's all right. So good to be here. Good to be here. And so it's been we got through the weekend. The weekend came and went. We had a little rain out here. It was strange. Like Friday it was like really, really hot. Then Saturday was really, really cold. It was like burr. And so it's strange how the weather changes up, but
Oh, yeah, it's doing
yeah.
that here too. I woke up this morning to a big thunderclap that sounded like it was right over us, and a big
Wow.
storm outside, and yeah,
Mhm.
flash flooding, lots of,
Ooh.
yeah.
Wow.
It was it was a big wake up this morning.
Yeah, well, that's how. Yeah, the Lord kind of gives you a little wake up call, lets you know He's in town. Boom. Yeah.
Yeah, bump.
Hmm. Yeah.
So good morning, Carrie and Elvira. We're glad to see you both this morning. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know some of you are still hopping in there, and I know there's many more of you out there who are not in the comments as often, but we're glad you're here too.
That's right. That's right.
So you saw our topic
Hmm.
about before the floods. I loved what the thumbnail that Gina had on there with the chair in the river,
Yeah.
the water, and the chairs floating up and everything.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I saw the thing. I was like, this is going to be an interesting topic today.
yeah, yeah. Because really, I think what got me started on this was I've been studying about
Hmm.
genealogies leading up to the flood
Hmm.
in Genesis.
Okay. Okay.
And I was looking to see, can I see any patterns here? What's going on? What was God doing all those years before the flood? And what can I find out
Mm.
just what I can see here in the genealogies,
Okay. Okay.
And now I thought it was very interesting, but I'm probably I don't know, a little too tedious with some of this because I was all into okay, how old was this person? How old was, and what year was that? I even
Wow.
figured out the years because one of the things I wanted to see was um, who was still living.
Mm-hmm.
So starting with Adam, who was still living in that line
Mm.
born?
Okay.
One of the things I found out was that, if I started with Adam being at year one, right? Like
Mhm,
when he
mhm.
was created, that's year one. He lived to be 930 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot. It's not even the most that someone
Right.
lived, but that's a lot. But Adam lived long enough to see Noah's father born,
Mhm.
not Noah himself. Adam died before Noah was born.
Wow.
But if you can imagine, Noah's father, excuse me, I think he was 182 when Noah was born.
Wow.
Adam is still alive,
Mhm.
so, to see Noah's father born.
Okay.
Noah. So sometime before Lamech, Noah's father was 182. Adam passed away. Okay.
Wow.
Seth, Adam's son,
Mhm.
lived all the way to Lamech's day. He got to see Lamech born, but he didn't get to see Noah born.
Okay.
A long time. Can you imagine everybody after that, with one exception?
Mhm.
Everybody after that was still alive when Noah was born. All of that generation is what I'm saying. All of the generations of Adam, they were
Mhm.
all still alive, except for Adam and Seth. They had passed away.
Mhm.
All the rest of them were
Mhm.
still alive when Noah was born. And when Noah was born, the year was 1056. Now we're talking 1056, you know, prior to, so I guess I should be counting backwards the way they do in,
Mm.
BC
Okay.
thing. But I'm talking about, yeah, I did go deep, Carrie, maybe a little too deep. But if I was counting year one when Adam was created,
Mhm.
and then year 930 was when Adam died, and then, counting every year after that. In year 1056 was when Noah was
Mhm.
born. And when he was born, everybody except for Adam and Seth in that righteous line was still
Mhm.
living. And that made me realize, oh
Mhm.
man, what they must have seen and what God was talking about when the earth was getting more and more violent during
Right.
that time. And that was why he had to bring the flood,
Flood,
was because
right.
of all the violence, right? So,
Mhm.
but in the midst of all of that, somewhere around the year 622,
Mhm.
Enoch is born.
Okay.
And you remember Enoch is the one. Oh,
Mhm.
thank you, Carrie. I'm glad you think it's fascinating too, because I thought it was. Enoch is the one that the
Mhm.
Bible says he walked with God.
Right. Enoch walked with
And then
God.
he was not because God took him. And
Right.
further on in the Bible, in Hebrews, I think the 11th chapter, where it's the hall of faith, and
Mhm.
it's mentioned there as being having the faith that he believed God and dedicated. His name actually means dedicated.
Right. Okay.
So, well, dedicated, but it's like dedicated to education or wisdom or whatever. So you get
Mhm.
the feeling he dedicated himself to learning from
Right.
God. And that was why he walked with God all
Wow.
the time. And because
Mhm.
of his faith, the Bible
Mhm.
says he was transliterated or translated. I think it was translated.
Yeah,
That
it's kinda
God
like he just
took him. Yeah, he
yeah.
didn't die. He didn't
Right,
die.
yeah.
God just took
Figured.
him.
Transfigured.
Yeah.
Transfigured. That's
Yeah. Well, I don't know if
trans
transfigured is the right word because
trans
Jesus was transfigured,
right.
but then, yeah, but then,
Okay.
yeah. So anyway, he was translated into heaven. All right. He didn't
Right.
die. God just took him. He was translated into heaven. Now, the
Mhm.
interesting thing about that to me is when I look at when that happened, that was in the year 987 when Enoch was 365 years old. And in the year 987, when I look and see, well, who was still living in
Mhm.
987? Adam wasn't, but Seth,
Mhm.
his son, was. So Seth and everybody after Seth,
Mhm.
let's see, that was 987. So Methuselah was already born. Methuselah knew that
Right.
his father got translated. He saw that happen. Lamech had already been born. So
Right.
Lamech, Methuselah's son, who was Noah's father, he saw that happen.
Right.
So Noah hadn't been born yet, but all the rest of them in
Mhm.
that line, except for Adam, got to witness that, be witnesses.
Mhm.
I don't know if they actually saw it happen, but they knew
Right.
about it. Can you imagine the talk?
Oh, I could yeah.
What must have been being said about that at that time and how they were talking among themselves about it. It had never happened before.
But, the thing that I've always thought was interesting was how long Noah was building the ark, and everybody was saying, "Oh, he's crazy, and look at that man," and he was out there just working away, building it, and everybody and he, and he was telling people it was,
Mhm.
something was coming, and they were like, "Oh," they didn't think about it, and
Well,
then
the other thing that was fascinating about that to me,
Mhm,
Rodney,
mhm,
was Noah was 500 when his sons were born. And the Bible lists them together.
mhm,
And there seems to be an indication because it says Noah was 500 and he had three sons. And everybody else it listed as they were this age when this son was born. But for
mhm.
Noah, he was 500 when these three sons were born. So it sounds like he had triplets.
Could
Okay.
be.
Isn't that interesting? He had triplets.
Wow.
So, yeah. And when he had the triplets, um, the flood came when he was 600. So
Right,
in that
okay.
100 years, while he's building the ark, his sons are growing up. Can you imagine at the beginning when he first starts building the ark, he does not
Mm,
have really their help because they're not old enough to help or
right.
to do
Yeah.
very, or maybe, who knows what they were doing at the beginning. But from the
Mhm,
time they were very, very small, they were trained up
mhm.
to be helping and to be recognizing hey, I'm doing this because God has said this.
Now, and also too, I've had some friends that actually have visited. Isn't it in Ohio, the Ark, the representative thing?
It's either in Ohio or Kentucky. It's like right there near the state line. So
Right. But I've had some friends that went and seen that, and they said it's hard to imagine someone building something quite that big because it's so many cubics, and because it always talking about how many cubics it was, but that just that's the amazing part of the whole faith walk, and to read all of this and to be able to take it in, and the fact that someone actually built it to spec
Mm.
like that, and you think of all the little animals being in it, and wow,
the
amazing.
whole thing, yeah. It's just helped me so much to kind of figure out the timing, though. I think I had always thought that when Noah was told to build the ark, that his sons were already grown, and that's not
Right.
true. They had just been born. It sounds like when Noah was told, here's what's coming, and you're gonna build this ark. So Noah's kids grew up knowing there was a flood coming.
Right, and watching him work, right.
And watching him work. And the Bible tells us that Noah, it says of Noah, he's the only other person that says this, that Noah walked with God. It actually says that in so many, yes, that the ark spanning 510 feet long, 85 feet wide, and 51 feet high. Wow. It was enormous. And I can imagine, I don't know how many people were actually working on it. Noah may have hired some people to work on
Carrie
it.
said it was in Kentucky. Yeah, it's in Kentucky. Yeah.
And I've been there. I should know, but it was several years ago. But if you've never been, y'all, you have to go.
You do. They say a lot, and it's a great thing for churches to take a trip. And a lot of churches all around America have sojourn there and to go and to be able to take their congregation and just to have a teaching moment.
Oh yeah.
To be able to take that in. I want to go see it. Well, I haven't been to see it yet, but I definitely want. There's so many different things that I want to, take in, and these things like that and then they were saying that they believe that they have found part of the ark somewhere and different things like that. And
yes. That it's that I was hearing a headline about that just recently. It's actually deep down, deep under the Dome of the Rock. I was hearing a headline about that just recently. Now, some people are saying it's in a place in Ethiopia, but the article I was reading saying it's like every other church in Ethiopia has a replica, and so. They're like, but these are probably, because they really take that very seriously about protecting it. They were like, these are probably their decoys to keep you from looking where it really is, because they don't want to,
wow.
So anyway.
Well, but hey, with all of this incredible truth coming out, I hope that more truth will continue to go and come out. That'd be.
But anyway, it had me thinking, Rodney, if you're growing up knowing there's a flood coming and you're preparing for it, and everyone around you is mocking you.
Wow.
Because that's what the Bible says, basically, that he was being mocked.
Right.
The whole time he was doing this. And I have to believe if Noah had that kind of faith, and he had actually heard from God, and he
probably impacted some people. Some people probably were like,
he had been telling other people. He had been not only warning them, but telling them, hey, God is talking to me, and he's wonderful, and I've been walking with him, and I'm learning this stuff, and and he's wanting to share that. And yet
I think the proof of it, the fact that this one guy, it wasn't like he had a whole army out there working, but it was him starting this whole thing. And gosh, that's just amazing. So amazing.
Yeah, it is to me too. And it was, I found it really interesting too, that I was looking in Hebrews 11, which is the what we call the faith chapter. You know, it's talking
Right.
the faith hall of fame. These are the ones who had faith, and because of faith,
Mhm.
they did this and this and this. And it mentions Abel, Adam's
Right.
son, one who was murdered, but
Right.
it says it was by faith that Abel offered up a righteous offering,
Mhm.
that even now, even though he's dead, he speaks through that righteous offering. So he's still remembered, he's still thought of, his own righteous offering still speaks for all of us.
Stands.
Yeah. And then right after that, it mentions Enoch, who walked with
Mhm.
God and was translated, and was
Mhm.
not because God took him, because Enoch had faith and that pleased God. And then it mentions the very next person it mentions is Noah.
Mhm.
And it says, and Noah had faith, and
Mhm.
this pleased God, and he was found to have favor with God because of his faith. And
Mhm.
then the very next verse says, because without faith, it is impossible
Awesome.
to please God.
That's
For
right.
they would come to God must believe that he is,
Mhm.
first, that he exists, and secondly, that he's a rewarder of those who diligently seek him.
Mhm.
So to me, that's the thing right there. How do we get ready for the flood? Any flood that's
Wow.
coming in our lives, whether it's an actual literal water flood, like the
Mhm.
flash flooding we were having this morning,
Mhm.
or whether it, and the people in North Carolina, I think about them, the
Mhm.
flooding for them. But whether it is just a flood of problems,
Right.
or,
Flood
uh,
or test,
yes,
trials. Yeah.
yes, throughout our lives, the Bible says when the enemy
Oh,
comes in like a flood, God raises up a standard.
keep going. Keep
Yeah.
going. My phone, my crazy little phone's ringing. I'll be right back.
Okay. Yeah, go get that. And I'll talk to the rest of you out there. And let me put this up here. I feel like I'm all over the place right here. But yes, Carrie, the Ark Encounter is situated in beautiful Grant County in Williamstown, Virginia. Not Virginia, Kentucky. I'm sorry, I was thinking Williamsburg, Virginia. Williamstown, Kentucky. In case anyone wants to go, highly recommend it. I have been. You will not be sorry if you're at all interested in how they were even able to do that. Not just build it, but house the animals and how they took care of things, and
That's
what
right.
did they do about sanitation? What did they do about feeding the animals? What did they do about
Right.
et cetera? All of the answers are there. It's fantastic. You really need to go. Anyway,
Mhm.
back to what I was saying about faith,
Right.
it being impossible to please God without believing that he exists and that he's a rewarder. I love that
Mhm.
word because it's not just saying,
Right.
okay, yeah, God won't answer your prayers. It's saying he's a rewarder,
Right.
those who diligently seek him. And the Bible makes it evident that he did reward Noah.
Mhm.
He did reward Enoch because of
Mhm.
the faith they had. So the answer for us, whatever flood is coming in, I think, is
Mhm.
to have faith in God, to walk with him.
Right.
All of the rest of that righteous line, from
Mhm.
Adam, Seth, Enos, all the way down to
Mm.
Noah,
Mhm.
only two of them,
Wow.
only two of them does it say they walked with God. It still
Wow.
calls them the righteous line,
Mhm.
but only two of them walked with God
Wow.
and found and saw that kind of reward that is
That give you
available.
something to shoot for, boy. I tell you, that give you something to shoot for.
Yeah, that
Yep.
is available to us too. Good
Wow.
morning, Dustin. Glad you're here
Mhm.
with us too.
Mhm.
So, anyway, that was just very exciting to me, and then I found myself thinking again about walking with God, and what does that mean?
Mm.
You know? You remember when we had, Shelley Marks, I
I
think was,
remember that. Mhm.
and she was talking to us about,
Mhm.
what it means to walk with God
Mhm.
and experience
Mhm.
you know, what God has in store for us. It's not
Mhm.
striving. It's
Mhm.
not, there is obedience involved. There is work involved,
Right, right.
you know, as there should be, because that is, I don't know. I think that's part of the thrill in
Right,
life.
and it's a lot of the joys too, because when you're going through life, life is always throwing you, you know, things that, and it's always, it seems that life's a roller coaster, and I think that the Lord wants us to experience that the ebbs and flows of things, because I've heard a lot of people say that if everything was just perfect all the time, would we really pray? And sometimes the Lord needs to keep us attached to him, and really keep you in a reality zone that you are not, we're not here without him, and that there is something going on, and there is, a lot of times, if you just literally look at things, there is good and evil. There's just so much good. And then there's certain things that go, boy, that sure didn't make sense. And people and things that they do. And so it really brings it all home. It makes it very real and applicable for life. I mean, because the word is the living word. It's the roadmap for life. And if you stay close to it, you have a different perspective. Even when bad times come, you can kind of get a little excitement and say, well, the Lord's doing something. Something's happening. Now, I
Yeah.
wasn't expecting this, but a lot of times people don't realize that it isn't about the bad times, it's how we handle it. And a
Mhm.
lot of times you hear people all the time say, you know, that guy went through a tough time, but man, they kept a smile on their face or whatever, or they got through it. And
I I think part of it, Rodney, is what we get to see God do in the middle of those rough,
mhm.
and
That,
that's what puts the smile on our faces,
that's right. That's
is
right.
that we get the opportunity to witness God doing something we never would have gotten to see
That's true.
in circumstances that we thought were impossible.
Yeah, and sometimes people think, and when you see those overwhelming miracles, I mean, because and like I said, I can go through so many different things that when I think about, I'm like, that I mean, I should have been wounded. I should have been injured in
Mhm.
these different capacities or different things. But and then sometimes you go, man, God's staying power, or you can see it in other people, and you can go, wow, I know that person, and they went through something, and then they came out of it on the other side, and it was perfect.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
And totally unexpected. So Dustin is asking, do you know why Jesus walked on water?
Ooh, that's a good question. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Wanna answer that?
I believe it was, the storm, because when that was just to really, and then also too, scripture says greater works will we do. And I'm thinking greater, how
Mhm.
could it be? And that's what always keeps me thinking. I'm like, wow, if that is so, if greater works, we are not tapping into all of our power. And a lot of times, when you see someone sick, you really want to lay hands on that person and pray for that person and raise them up. I'm like, if you can, if Lord, if it's your will, of course, but if you want to, I think those are some of the most powerful things, and I think that we don't tap into all of our real strength, and our
Mhm.
faith
Mhm.
has a lot to do with it too. But that's a good question. I don't know. I was just saying it was just to demonstrate, you know, be calm in those tough times.
Mm. And that Jesus is not subject to that storm or that water is,
That's right.
those waves, and he is above them.
That's right.
He has control over
And he
all.
just spoke, and everything just like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. And,
And because of him, he said, you can do this too. You can step out and do this too. And that's why he invited Peter to do it. And Peter was the only one who had the faith to actually step out of the boat
and
give it a
only when he looked down and really started thinking, like, I'm really walking on water, instead of keeping he said, and keep focus on me. As long as he was focused on him, he was able to walk on water. But the moment he starts looking down, like, I can't believe it, I'm really walking on water, that's when he started to sink.
You know, I don't think that's what he was telling himself. I think when he looked down, instead of saying, I'm walking on water, I think he was saying, this isn't possible.
Right, there you go.
That's why he started to sink. It's like he started telling himself
it wasn't possible.
Something that wasn't true. Yeah. I'm with you there, Elvira. I think it is a symbol. Nothing is impossible for Jesus. He is God Almighty.
Right. Oh.
And David is Dustin, pardon me, is telling us Jesus walked on water to demonstrate his power over Satan. The sea has always been Satan's domain. Now that's kind of interesting to think about that. Think how many times Jesus did miracles that were somehow involving the sea. Or how many
times? Remember the whale?
Yes. Jonah and the whale.
Jonah and the whale.
There's one right there. Remember the time that he had them fish on the other side of the boat when they'd caught nothing all night, and then all of a sudden they catch all this stuff? Remember the other time when they had to pay taxes, and he says, I want you to go out in the boat, and you're going to putting your, and in the mouth of one of those fish is going to be the coin that you'll use to pay the tax.
Woo. Yeah. But those are those blessings. I've had things that, you think like, I got to take care of this bill. I got to take care of this. How am I going to take care of this? And you're thinking like, well, I was expecting this money to come in. The money's not here yet. And you started thinking about this, and all of a sudden, poof, a blessing comes through. Perfect timing. And I'm telling you, me and some friends, especially being here in California, especially when you're doing business, sometimes things are just delayed. And it seemed like the whole world was just going to just implode. And all of a sudden, right at the last second, boop, the Lord opens a door and a blessing comes in, and we're like, whew.
Yeah. But whatever he provides has been in the works long before your problem developed.
Sure enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. That's right.
So, and I would love to tell you, that I have learned over the years that you can rest in the middle of all those trials.
Right.
And, having faith that God is going to do that. But I'm here to testify that what's true of me anyway is that although I'm better than I used to be, still those trials come and I see them coming and my stomach starts knotting up and I start thinking, how am I going to take care of this? What am I going to do? And I do pray, but after I pray, then I'm right back to how am I going to take care of this? What am I going to do?
That's right. One of the things I have to tell you, it's kind of strange, but and it's, for me, it just happens if I'm extremely stressed about something. I'm talking about like having a big problem. It drains me. It makes me so sleepy. I'm like, I can't. I'm thinking about this. I'm like, right now, it is humanly impossible for me to fix this. I've got a problem. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go take a nap. I literally will go get in bed, cut the lights out. I'm like, I'm going to sleep and go to sleep and pray. And really, because there's certain things. Because when you try and you have maxed out everything, go take a nap, pray about it, and leave it at the Lord. Say, Lord, please just take care of this thing. And I have woke up and had answers. I have woke up and had solutions come together. And I was thinking like, this is not supposed to have happened. This was supposed to end in a major debacle, and it happened. So I'm like, hey, get tired. Yeah, crisis is over. That's right.
I know. You get that surge of adrenaline carrying the truth. We get that surge of adrenaline where we're like, and then as soon as it's over, it's like, I'm spent now. All that adrenaline goes, and we're in a crash. But,
Mm-hmm.
Rodney, I can't tell you how much I admire that, just the resting part, because that's the thing I
I've done
struggle
it. Trust me. I'm telling you, I could call some of my friends. I had a buddy of mine that was living with me, my buddy Marvin, and we hit a couple snags in there, and he's like, "Man, what are we gonna do?" I said, "Look, I'm taking a nap. Good night. Yeah, talk to you about it later. I'm going." And I mean, literally midday, got ready for bed, got comfortable, and just pulled the blankets over my head and just said, "Oh Lord," And you know what? When you think about that and you just fall asleep, man, you just sleep. You just like you might as well just because there's certain things that you get to certain points you just can't do any more than what you've done. When you have done all that you can, and not saying that you've tried to do this, but and you don't want to get ahead of the Lord working, because a lot of times people say, "Well, I'm going to work on this. I'm going to fix this problem." No, you're not. It always turns out that when you run out of gas, you're like, okay, I better go
Yeah.
take a nap. So,
But, Rodney, I tend to overthink these things.
mm-hmm.
Like I said, I'm like, I I maybe initially can't figure out how this is gonna get resolved. And maybe it's because the answer isn't there yet, you know? So,
Well,
but I'm sitting
yeah.
there trying to figure it out, and then I pray about it, and I'm like, "God, I'm
Mm-hmm.
trusting you," and I say it out loud, and I believe I am doing it, but then right after, I find myself thinking, "Okay, is there anything I missed? Is there anything that I
Mm-hmm.
should have done? Is God not answering me because there's something I should have done already? Maybe I'm supposed to be sacrificing something or whatever." And I
Yeah.
just keep hashing it over and hashing it over. And it's not until, like you said, I'm fully satisfied. There's literally nothing I can do about this.
I kind of fast track things. I try not to be one thing I try not to do is stress. I really try to keep my stress level down. I
I take
really
care of
do. And I don't keep grinding and trying to figure out stuff. I get to the point I'm just like, you know, there's going to be a learning lesson. There's a reason why I'm going through this. And so, which I accept that, and certain things, certain duties come upon me. And so I'm like, well, why me? Why am I being asked to do this? Or why is this thing put on me? And I look around and I'm like, there's nobody else that could do this.
that.
And it's kind of like, I'm handling something right now that it's similar to that. And I'm thinking like, and people have called me and said, "Oh, it's wonderful what you're doing." And I'm thinking, well, you can join in, you can help, but the whole key thing is maybe it's not meant for anybody, and maybe it's meant for me to get this learning lesson because I'm learning so much as I'm going through this process.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
so, and the best thing to do is just, have faith and believe and just keep going. Rodney, you sleep, but you imagine what was it? It said you
Oh, I'm
sleep.
sorry. I
No, no
keep
problem.
sorry. There you go.
Oh, Rodney, you sleep. But
Sleep, but imagine the people who drink about it instead.
ooh, yeah. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. And yeah, I mean, and that becomes and that's the problem. A lot of people who do stress out, they start turning to other alternative things, and
Mhm.
that's not good either. That's a really bad thing. That's going to make things a lot worse. So,
I think most of my life has been a long, long, multi-part lesson of learning to live one moment at a time
there you
and
go.
and resting. And by resting, I mean, for me, the work it takes to rest. This is the
Right.
way I imagine things a lot of times
Mhm.
and I've showed y'all this before. It's like I've got a grip on something, that
Right.
I'm turning it over and I'm trying to figure out what do I do with this, and I got to hold on to it until, I can't let anything happen to it,
Mhm.
security, whatever. And then I get to that place finally where I'm like, "Oh man, I should have let go of this a long time ago." You know,
Mhm.
so God, I'm doing that. Here it is, take it. Oh, and I
Yeah.
open up my hand because
Wow.
my fingers, I've had a grip on this for so long. It's like now
Right.
it is
Part of you.
it's like part of me.
Yeah.
So I literally have to say, God, pry my fingers off,
Yeah.
even if it hurts. Even if when you start doing it, I start crying and I tell you, quit, it hurts too much.
Mm.
Please keep going because I know this is vital. This has got to happen.
Yeah.
So ignore me if I start complaining about it, and then God does. He starts opening up my grip.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, that hurts so much, but this is so much better. And now my hand is open to receive
Yes.
from him
Mm-hmm.
whatever he sends.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yet, a few miles down the road, and here go my fingers.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. I feel like my whole life, it has been an exercise in resting while working,
Yeah.
that you don't work from a place of stress. You
Right.
work from a place of rest, and the work itself is restful
Right.
because it's work he gave you to do, and you're trusting him for the fruit of it, for the outcome,
You're
not
right.
yourself, not taking
Mhm.
responsibility for it, which is what I have tended to do most of my life,
Mhm.
thinking
I like,
somebody responsible for the outcome.
and I also like that, the Lord says, take up my yoke for my burden is light,
Yes.
and you start thinking about that and you're like, we pick up so many other much heavier things. There's the people we carry such things, and I'm like, the Lord is light. It's not like that. And I started thinking about it, and it was funny. I was driving yesterday, and I went live, and I just made this comment. I said, somehow I got on to the point of, I said, you want to make sure that you believe because you don't want to get to heaven, and and he's like, oh, hi, how are you? And you're like, there really is a God. I'm like, yeah, you better you better believe it. He's like, I told you so. I told you, didn't I tell you? And you're like, oh, so I'm like, you want to make sure that you're prepared for that. And prepared for that, because that is something that we all will meet. We will all meet him someday,
Mhm.
and you definitely want him when he opens up that book of life. Boy, you want your name in that thing, and you just want to have him check you off and say, "Well done, enter into the joys." Whew, boy,
Yeah.
anything other than that, it's not good. You don't want to hear any other discussion other than "well done." Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. And
So,
in the meantime, like you said,
mm-hmm.
calling on God every day,
That's right.
moment to moment.
Yeah, I mean, well, and that's
I
why it
call
says,
him in the morning, in the afternoon, I've already forgotten he's there, and, so it's literally moment to moment,
you
uh,
know,
letting
but
God train me.
but Nina, when you look at the news, you're driving on the freeway, you see things, and like I said, sometimes you're just sitting there at a traffic signal, and there goes the ambulance, and I'm going, somebody's in distress. So
Mhm.
why not pray for that person? Because could you imagine you needing an ambulance, and you're in some kind of thing, and hopefully somebody else will say, oh Lord, I hope that they get to wherever they're going. I take a moment because I'm sitting there and I see that, and I'm like, Lord, whoever is in distress, Lord, please let them get the help that they need. And it's like you see things, and you think also too, accidents happen just before you, and you see this and you go, wow, I could have been there, you
Mhm.
know and there are things that you don't want to imagine all of the chance, because you'd be so you'd be worried sick thinking about what could happen. So but just by staying in the faith, just like the Bible says, pray without ceasing. You gotta, every time you think, me personally, I try to think about the Lord as much as I can throughout the day, and say little prayers along the way, just to kind of keep your head together, keep you
Mhm.
in alignment with what's real. I mean, because when you look at everything with AI and the computers and the phone ringing and people calling on the phone and all this other, all that other stuff, that's just clutter. It's a lot of busy chatter, noise, and stuff like that. So
I think one thing that I especially loved about studying in this genealogy here was because one of the things I realized was, Adam's firstborn son was killed by his secondborn son.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then that son had to be banished too, rightly so.
Mm-hmm.
So now Adam has a third son, and it's this line through that. But right away, almost right away, Adam is seeing the results of sin in the world. He's getting a very clear picture. The wages of sin is death. And then all through those generations of Adam, when the other ones live, his grandson, his great grandson, and he's still there for all of it. He's still seeing all of this lineage, coming out from him. And yet all of them are experiencing that increasing violence in the world.
Right.
And they all could be focusing their attention there. And maybe some of them were, I don't know. But in the middle of that, you have Enoch.
Right.
Has dedicated himself to walking with God and learning from him.
Right.
And there's the picture. And they all got to see that. All of them got to see that with Enoch. And I think about that and I'm like, it's true that the majority are going to go, one direction. There's only a few that are going to choose this.
Right. Right.
But it's still possible for any of us.
Right.
And the testimony of Enoch is still there, even in our midst.
Right.
That we could be focusing our attention there too. We could dedicate ourselves to focusing our attention on God.
Quick question.
And walking with him.
When you think about, and again, we are in a real situation right now. We're looking at the world. And when you look at how things are going and how, and of course, the Bible has spoke of things and prophecy being fulfilled. And, you hear some people say, oh, it's all over, and then other people say no. And he says, I will come when no man knoweth, always be waiting and watching. And so when you think about that, you look at what's going on and you're like, well, how am I to stand, in these days? I need to stand, and it says, and having done all to just be able to stand, you know what I mean? And when I read that, I was like, that means it is a battle. You could hardly stand, to be under this kind of pressure or whatever. And I'm like, wow. So we've got a lot to get ready for. We have to be strong in spirit and our mind, and be prepared for all things. Because it don't seem like it's going to get any easier.
No. I want to share with you what the Bible tells us in Jude that Enoch prophesied. That's the same Enoch that walked with God and was not because God took him. It says, let me see here. So it says, and Enoch also, the seventh from Adam, prophesied of these, saying, behold, the Lord cometh with 10,000s of his saints to execute judgment upon all, and to convince all that are ungodly among them of all their ungodly deeds, which they have ungodly committed, and of all their hard speeches, which ungodly sinners have spoken against him. These are murmurers, complainers, walking after their own lusts, and their mouths speak great swelling words, having men's persons in admiration because of advantage.
Right. Ooh.
In other words, I'm admiring people around me.
Right.
Because I think it's an advantage for me to do so, but I'm admiring them instead of God. And as a result, I'm doing all these ungodly things. But he says God is coming. Even Enoch back there
Mm-hmm.
saw ahead. God allowed him the vision to see ahead
Right.
and know the day is coming. I am coming with 10,000s of my saints. You're not just, you may feel like you're the only one walking with God
Mm-hmm.
right here. And maybe that's all the Bible records, and it seems like, but
Right.
God is letting you know, no, I have plenty more.
That's right.
And
Wow.
you're not alone. And,
Amazing.
but even if you were, stick with me.
That's right.
Me.
Wow. That's amazing. Like I said, great topic, and like I said, before the flood comes, because, as we all know, there are always some kind of trials coming. And we need to pray for the people there in Thailand with that earthquake and the
Oh yeah,
building,
yeah.
and it's very sad, that but places are all around. I mean, and an earthquake can really do damage, and if you're not prepared for that, it could be really, really something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it really can. And
There's some things you just can't be prepared for.
no, no,
No
you.
matter what you do, you just can't be prepared for it,
Mhm.
except if you're walking with God.
Yeah, that's true.
Because that is the one thing.
Mhm.
God knows your needs before you even have
Even
them.
as right,
And he's the one that can provide for you moment to moment
right.
as you go along, not just internally what you need with encouragement, with reassurance, with,
Mhm.
that assurance that it's going to be okay,
Blessed
but
assurance.
also with the physical things that you
Mhm.
need. There's
Right.
no way for you to secure them. There's no way for you
Mhm.
to protect them or have
Right.
them or keep them safe. And because, I think about those people in North Carolina,
Yeah.
anything that they had accumulated that they thought, oh, I'm going to get this because then if this happens, I'll have this to take care of us. I'll have that generator. I'll have this boat so I'll be able to fish,
And everything just washed away.
and all of it gone. So, and there
Wow.
was no way they could protect from that.
Yeah.
No way.
Wow.
So, yeah. Chloe says God hates complaining. He left the Israelites in the desert for 40 years for that. So, because complaining
Yeah,
is,
that's not doubt. Yeah, I mean, if you complain and you're not really exercising your faith, you're like, oh, this is woe is me. And again, a lot of times, there have been things that have not went right, but I just say, to myself, maybe the Lord is, you know, making some shifts and changing some things. And sometimes things have to be kind of have to shake up the snow globe a little bit, and that's what happens.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Agree. Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Yeah, yep, yep.
So, oh, and thank you, Chloe. Chloe's telling me I look beautiful today. It's just today, not other days, but that's okay.
Nope, nope, nope. All the time, all
Thank
the
you, Chloe. I really do appreciate that. I'll probably float on that for the rest of the week.
time.
But what she was saying about God hates complaining. He left the
Mhm.
Israelites in the desert for 40 years for that. Um, I think there's one of the places that I remember in Job. It was the book of Job,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
when God told Job's friends, "I'm not
Mhm.
happy with you because you said about me what wasn't true."
Right. And that's a big thing. That's the reason why I try to be very, very careful about, certain people start talking about things, and I'm like, do not put that on the Lord. I'm like, I don't want to hear about that. I'm like, nah, I don't think I don't want to be involved in that conversation, because I'm like, you know, and I don't want to add one word. I don't want to take away, because and that's why the Lord, He is all powerful, and He is the first and primary concern. I really think people put a lot of other concerns out front, and for me, if I had to choose between, you know, man and the Lord, that's going to be that's not a hard choice to make at all. I'm going to be like, listen, I understand how things look. Yeah, it looks pretty bad right now. I'm going with the Lord. I'm going to keep my focus on the Lord and what He said.
That's what
I
I'm
don't want
saying.
to hear what you say. I don't care about all of these, gadgets and things. And oh, Lord have mercy.
I think that's what complaining is we're saying things that are not true about,
Hmm.
and we
Right.
may not realize we are. I keep
Right.
thinking, I've heard this so many times before,
Hmm.
and I don't know who first said it, but God,
Hmm.
you'd have more friends if you treated them better. Like, hey, we don't like all these trials you're putting on us, and et cetera. And yet, all of these things are happening to bless us and for our good.
And to make you
Yeah.
stronger. It's
Yeah,
just like,
well,
look,
and that's for
I,
our
I
good.
and
That's
sometimes you look at it, it's like, how do you build muscle? You got to have resistance. You could say, oh, I'm going to work out. Them weights will sit there until you pick them up. And when you start picking up those weights and you start working out, that resistance is what's going to make you stronger.
Mhm.
And sometimes it could be challenges, people, your
Mhm.
job, they're all your health. It could end these little challenges, these little things like that. And sometimes you just have to really exercise your faith and work through this. And when it's and also too, just like I have a dear friend, like Elaine. She's going through a little health challenge, but a producer contacted her about a film, and so she is in a taking care of herself at a facility, but they went in and filmed her, and she did her role in even in a state where she's having some ups and downs right now. I think it was beautiful, but just to keep exercising your faith and that little bit of positivity goes a long way.
I love the analogy you used with the, ge using
Lifting
weight,
weights.
yeah, lifting weights through resistance, getting stronger. Because the
That's
doctor
right.
was just telling me recently, he said, literally what you do when you are challenging your muscles that way,
Hmm.
when you're working with resistance, it literally creates little micro tears in your
Hmm.
muscle. It's tearing down your muscles, and then when your body, which is God doing this is not
Yeah,
you doing this,
that's right.
God works this in your body and made your body this way to do it, that
Hmm.
when those tears are being repaired, it
Yeah,
builds muscle back better than it was
that's
before.
right.
So all those little tears and all the soreness that we get with it is
Hmm.
actually doing us
Good.
good that
Yeah.
might be hard for us to imagine while we're going through the soreness. And, hard for us to and how many times I've complained about, "Oh, I'm so sore," or,
Yeah.
"I'm not doing that again," and that sort of thing. But God is, I'm thankful He ignores a lot of my complaining and just gives me what I need anyway, and then helps me see afterwards. But I'd love to get to that place, and I want to be at that place where my faith is such that I say, "You know,
Yeah.
this is unpleasant, not gonna lie about it, but I'm not complaining because I know something good is happening here.
Yeah.
God is doing something here that is far greater than what I could have imagined, and I trust Him for that because
Hmm.
I know His character. I know His
Right.
nature. He's not capable of doing things to harm me just for the fun of it, just to watch
Yeah.
me complain.
Some people they have, I hear people all the time say, well, if the Lord was good, why would He do this? I'm like, you know, live the best life you can, get up there, and when you ask Him, He will tell you, and you'll be like, I can't believe it. Really? I mean, that's the most interesting part of this whole thing, because some people feel like they have a lot of questions and things like that. And I'm like, just live your life. You get there, it will all make sense by and by. You will get all the answers. Trust me. once you
To
get there.
those who believe God is and that he is a rewarder. That's what
Uh-huh.
faith is.
That's
That
right.
we believe no matter how it looks right now or what seems to be happening or what it appears like, even if it
Mhm.
appears that God is against us, that God
Mhm.
is a rewarder of
Right.
those who
Oh,
diligently
gently
seek.
seek him. That's
Yeah,
right.
exactly. And
Beautiful.
Chloe is
Beautiful.
pointing out the reason so often we don't do this is
Mm,
fear,
that's right.
meaning FEAR, false evidence appearing real.
That's right.
Have that up on my wall right now, Chloe, because I needed that reminder.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really awesome.
Oh, we're getting close to, we got about 5 minutes left, Rodney. Anything you want to
Wow.
cover in particular? Tell
Yeah.
me,
Hmm.
we didn't get to hear, we got to hear a little bit of you being home for your dad's funeral.
Yeah.
To hear
Yeah.
more.
Well, I just, like I said, I went home and was able to, it was just a good time to be able to go home. It wasn't, it's never easy to go home and under those type of circumstances, but I had my uncles that came into town, my dad's brothers. I had two brothers and two of his sisters and other cousins and nieces, and and it was just a great thing. And my pastor, Pastor Vandenberg at our little church there in Liberty, North Carolina, they, had a great service, and it was just a quick trip. I was only home for like four days or something like that, but I was rested. I was able to get some rest and spend some good time with my brother. And my sister was handling a lot of stuff. I didn't get a lot of time to spend with her, but I'm planning on taking another trip back. Now that things are settling down a little bit, I do plan on going back. But it was great weather. Saw a couple high school friends and then made some other great contacts there. But it was good.
Mhm.
And oh, Wildfire says, we're having a good day. Yes, we are. Thank you, Wildfire.
Yeah. Good to see you here today.
Mm-hmm.
Rodney, it occurs to me that even the passing of your father is
Yeah,
part of tearing down,
yeah.
because we grieve.
Right, right,
It
right.
feels like the end of an era when a parent has passed and like, the
Yeah.
world will never seem as friendly again, etcetera,
Mm-hmm.
all of the things. And yet there's no denying
Right,
we become different people
right,
after parents die because we recognize then
right.
there
Well,
is nobody to fall back on
well,
now.
I
There is nobody to go to for,
right.
it's me and God now. I'm the
That's
in the
right.
top tier now.
And I actually, you know, it was just a reminder, of all of the knowledge that he had ever spoke. And when I got the word that he passed away, I said, well, there'll be no more advice. There'll be no more
Mhm,
warnings so
mhm,
everything that he has ever said or presented before you, everything that you saw, everything that you heard, just, from adults talking or whatever, lock it in, because that's going to be the foundation that I've got to build on and build legacy on, because he did
mhm.
great things. I mean, my dad just he really, really did some amazing things that, just personally. I mean, he owned businesses, and he'd never had any, like, growing up, I never saw a repairman at our house. Anything that, if it was electrical, dad fixed it. If there was a leaky sink, dad goes, I'm so tired of this sink leaking. Come on, Rodney, let's go. And get in the truck and down to the hardware store, and he'd go get a plunger and take off the sink. And I was like, how do you know all this stuff? And my dad goes, man, you better learn all this stuff. And I'm like, and he had tools, he had a tool for everything. If he had jacks and hydraulic things and torches to weld and things to cut, and just, I mean, there's nothing that, when it comes down to getting the job done, my dad could get the job done. He had, and matter of fact, he had stuff that if he didn't have help, he had it. I mean, like he had a vise in his shop, a big, heavy, like heavy, big anvil with you crank it down, and you could put something in there, and you didn't need a second person holding something because Dad had a vise that was mounted to a metal table that
Mhm.
I was just like, well, that makes it easy because sometimes he just didn't want to be bothered with having somebody else there, and he didn't want to be bothered. He could set it up how he wanted it, get the right
You
angle,
wanna do something and no one else is around, so you have to figure out a way. Yeah, my
and
grandfather had one of those too.
he did, and so those are the type of things that I learned, and so, but it was a good trip home, but it was very fulfilling, and again, it made me take a deep breath and say, okay, Rodney, the next chapter, it's on you. You know, it's
Yeah.
what you do with this knowledge is up to you. You can squander it, you could use it, you can multiply on top of it. That's what I'm gonna do.
Mhm. And Carrie said, "Nowadays, I watch YouTube," but she's right, you learn by doing, and it's not just things like that. You know, the
Mhm.
whole thing we've been talking about today is it's the walking with the Lord. That's us learning
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
doing.
Yep,
And
yep,
what
yep.
we're learning about Him and about ourselves is amazing.
So true.
Yeah.
Well, great topic. Great
Yeah.
topic today.
And great note to end on.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Well, everybody,
And it's time.
we really appreciate you being on. You've been watching a chat session here on the This Way Network. We're here every Monday at 8:30 a.m. I'm very blessed to be with Nina. She comes up with great topics, and hopefully we'll have more incredible guests. And next week, hopefully we'll be working on having some really fun things coming through. And we appreciate everybody, and from Elvira, AC Cruz, Carrie, everybody, thank you. We really appreciate that. We really appreciate you coming, and tell somebody too to join. Tell them, hey, tell your friends to come watch the show because we appreciate you and we love your comments, and we really love the interaction.
Amen. We sure do.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was nice. Thank you. Good to see you, Sabrina. Thanks for the comment there. Let me put that
Yeah.
one up there.
Yeah.
And y'all go out and have a great day. And remember, God is with us and we are not alone.
Yes.
So thanks everybody. See you next time.
God
Bye.
bless. Have a great week.